Hello, Miss Heather. How are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. So excited to be here.
Woohoo! I'm so excited. So, really quickly for our listeners, because we just talked about this before I hit the record button, you have a salon in Louisville, Kentucky, but
hmm
you right now are in Houston, Texas. Can you
hmm
share with our listeners how that has been for you?
Yes. And it's funny because when this comes up as a topic of conversation, I usually have to repeat myself that my salon is in Louisville, Kentucky, and I live in Houston. And the first question 100% of the time that is asked is, how did you do that? And this is literally an answer to almost any question that someone would ask me regarding business, and my answer is always, it comes back to leadership. So I had really started, I would say, all of 2018, because I was traveling a lot for work. I was on the road a lot speaking, and so I wasn't in my salon as much. And I retired from behind the chair December of 2016. So all of 2017, all I worked on was the team, our culture, and leadership. So the salon could run without me. I continued doing that in 2018, and I was traveling a lot. But when I was home, and I was usually home throughout the week, I was working on leadership, working on our systems. I really was not executing anything in the company. And I mean, nothing, not payroll, not inventory, none of our trackers. I never was running reports in our salon software. Other people were doing that stuff. And then they would come to me. And basically, my job was to explain my thinking when they would show me certain things. So if I was going to do inventory or payroll or whatever it was, if I'm doing it, I don't give the chance to somebody else to really teach them how to do it and how to think like me, but better.
Mm.
So I can give them the baseline of how I think, but everybody has their own unique skill sets, personality, strengths that they can bring to the table. And once they know how I think, they can add their sauce on top of it. So I literally did that for 2 full years, probably 2.5 years, because I didn't move to Texas until um, August of 2019. And then when I got to Texas, it was pretty much just the salon had its, it knew what to do. I had a great leadership team in place, and I since then have been running it remotely. So I still work on my salon. We use Slack, which
Mhm.
is, a communication tool. And my main job for the last 4 years has been to communicate with leadership, and then leadership executes the day to day. Now, that has changed since October, when you and I were originally supposed
Yeah.
to talk. And you said this is a space of transparency. And so I felt like the world was crumbling in October. I had just got back from maternity leave. I had my first baby in June. And I came back, and there was some decisions that I needed to make within the company, some really, 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 really hard decisions. And that involved people leaving. And then once I made those decisions, other people left. So I pretty much parted ways with and lost half of my leadership team.
Mm.
And so since October, I have been much more involved with the salon. Now, the start of all of this was my decision. I
Mhm.
knew that hard changes needed to be made. I was extremely convicted. And I knew that it was going to be hard getting out of it. I don't think I knew exactly how hard, but from my past, my brain has enough past evidence that tells me no matter what goes down, I can make it out. I can figure it out. I can work really hard on the right things.
Mhm.
And so I wasn't tripping too bad, because I knew
Yeah.
this has to happen. This has to
Mhm.
happen. And it's time that I take a lot of ownership back into my hands.
Mhm.
And I still fully plan on rebuilding. I'm working on building one leader right now. I'm still rebuilding other leaders,
Mhm.
but I won't remove myself as much as I did because there is a quality control thing there and a standard of excellence that I want. And that wasn't being done. And it wasn't being done not because of them, but because I was allowing for it not to be done. And there's a very big difference because I'm not going to blame anybody.
Right.
I knew certain things weren't happening. I knew certain things weren't getting done. And to be flat out honest, and people would not expect this answer from me, I just didn't care enough to step in and make it better. I just didn't care enough, mainly because I was pregnant and I had a horrible, 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 horrible pregnancy. I didn't work for 9 months. So I was in bed every single day. And then before then I was building PIP, and a lot of my time was going to building PIP University. And so there was just things where I'm like, it's not a priority. I can't dig into that right now because I have 15 other things. Well, now that's not the case anymore. PIP University has its foundation. I'm not pregnant anymore. And so it's the perfect time for me to give more to my salon. So long-winded answer, but there it is.
No, but I love that. And I know the listeners are too, because that is a goal for so many salon owners, to be able to have a salon in another state and like live their life and just check in. But I love, love the self-awareness piece that you have, that you said it. Like, I knew from experience from myself enough that I could handle this. And then also you're like, I just didn't care. I mean, I'm having a baby. My marriage is great. I'm just throwing that in there. And I have PIP, like I'm living my best life. Like, I don't care about that right now. And I know that takes a lot for any salon owner, any woman in business, to really like own that, and be able to be like okay with it, to admit it. So kudos to you for
and
that.
it's the truth. It's the truth. And I know a lot of other people probably can relate to that. And it's because I was so focused on other things, specifically within PIP University. And when I was pregnant, I was just focused on surviving and like having this kid, where I just didn't feel like, in also in total transparency too. I had built such a strong-minded leadership team that when we would talk about things that I felt like needed to change, sometimes it was like fighting an uphill battle, which is good. I feel like you should want that for a company. You should want people that feel safe and confident enough to tell you the truth, because I work with salon owners every single day, and I work with the top salon owners in the country. And I can point out, after spending a week's time with a salon owner, if their team feels comfortable enough to tell them the truth, and if the owner will allow them and not just bulldoze right over them. And I didn't do that with my team. And there was times where I would absolutely stand my ground, but they would stand their ground also. So it was like, we would fight for what was best for the company. And so sometimes it was like, oh my gosh, for me to be able to pull this off, I'll have to go through so much. And it was a lot of uphill work. Now, the big things that I really cared about, I fought for those. And usually it wasn't even me winning. It was, we got all on the same page. We understood the why. We understood how valuable it was for the company, and we understood how valuable it was for our team. And then usually we were all congruent and moved forward together. But any other little thing, I was like, I just don't feel like going through convincing them that we need to move forward this way. And so, and that there's a little bit of laziness in there too, but that's the truth. And I'm sure a lot of other owners can, even if it's not them having to talk with a leadership team, it's just making themselves do something that they don't want to do, even though they know it needs to be solved.
So what are your, I guess, top 3 things that you look for, or that they need as their own person to start a leadership team?
So repeat that question for me. Are you saying, what are the things that I would tell another owner what to look for in someone else for them to be a leader?
Yeah, let's go in that way. Sure.
I would say, well, this is what I care about.
Mm-hmm.
Number one, I want you to say when you messed up. That's a big thing for me. And I struggled with that with one particular girl who's no longer with us anymore, where I would notice that she wasn't telling me the truth. And it wasn't that she was flat out lying necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted her to say, I messed up. That was my mistake. One of our core values is I take ownership. I want people to take ownership of when they mess up. And to do that and to get people in a space where they feel like it's okay to do that,
Mm-hmm.
they learn that skill or that trait by watching someone else. And so I'm really bad at a lot of things, but one thing I am very good at is being vulnerable and saying like, that's all on me. I messed up. I'm sorry about that.
Mm-hmm.
Only because I think that it makes you way more relatable. It increases trust, and it only builds compassion for the people that you're working with. And so I definitely look for that. The other thing I would say would be I look for people that are willing to work really, really hard and be really uncomfortable, and people that think good isn't good enough. We're in the pursuit of mastery. And I really, really mean that. I have a standard of excellence that means a lot to me professionally and personally. And if I'm going to work with people alongside people as a leadership team, you have to be willing to work really hard on the right things. And that's just like this thing that I've been contemplating a lot probably over the last 6 months, like since I've been back to work. Working hard is not enough. Tons of people work hard, but it's working hard on the right things. And that's a whole different ballgame. You can work really, really hard on the shit that's easy to you, the stuff that makes you feel comfortable, and then you're never achieving any results at all. You're not moving the needle. You're not bringing in any more money. You're not increasing your utilization or your retention. You're not hiring more employees. Instead, you paint the break room or you bring in another color line, buffering stuff. I want people that are focused on, no, I want to work hard on the right things, no matter how uncomfortable it is. And I've got a few girls that are like that. The third thing I would say is, so one of our other core values is I wash feet. And so I would say,
love that. Oh my God. What? Okay.
Yep, I wash feet.
We're gonna get into that, but continue.
And I would say like truly being a servant, like having a servant's heart. And you, like when we have these calls, they're called level 10 calls. And it was when all of leadership, so we still do them, it's just smaller leadership. There's 3 of us, but before there was 5 of us. And basically they were every Friday, and we would say on Fridays, we fight for the company. We get really uncomfortable. The discussions are very heated. And really it was just heated between me and one other girl who happens to also be my best friend. And she will definitely get in the arena with me. So all the other people on the call, you would always see their heads go back and forth on Zoom, just watching me and Danielle go back and forth. But what was great about that is none of them cared to tell me how they really felt. And they would always like go to bat for the rest of the team. They would always be like, let me tell you why she deserves this. Or let me tell why she's been so great. Their come from was exceptional. And I can say that about all these girls. Their come from was exceptional with the way that they would want to serve the rest of their team members or serve guests. If they were like, can we do this for this guest? She just lost her husband. Or this guest's daughter is getting ready to have foot surgery in 3 Fridays. Can we send her? Because we have a feet washing channel. So anything that goes down in our guest lives, our girls will post it in this Slack channel called feet washing. And we usually try to do something for the guest. Well, this stuff adds up. I mean, when they're posting in here, 2-3 times a day for every day of the month that we're open, it becomes a lot for us to buy stuff for every single person. But I love their servant's heart. They really do execute that core value well. And that's probably the third thing that I would say that I would look for in a leader. Because you gotta you got to be secure enough in who you are as a woman. Cause I only worked with
Mhm.
women. We've just never had any men at the salon. You have to be secure enough in who you are as a woman to promote another woman authentically.
Mm.
And when I see somebody doing that, I'm like, ooh, it immediately allows for me to trust them faster.
I love that. There are so many good points in here. And just before the call, one of the questions that I had for you was, as salon owners, being in this industry, we are working, at least you should be working from that servant's heart. And if you are a salon owner, you are a servant leader. And to hear you come up with that, it means a lot to me because we're on the same page. So, what do you feel is your biggest flex as a servant leader for you personally, as Heather?
Hmm. I don't know if this is like the route that you're looking for, but my absolute biggest flex is I know how to surprise and surprise big.
I love
I
that.
will, if somebody does something like absolutely killer, I am gonna sneak around you and talk to every single person you love with all of your heart. I'm gonna find out what triggers the hell out of you in a really, really good way, and I'm gonna make it happen. And that's for like, bigger things. Of
Yeah.
course, I can be thoughtful, send a bunch of text messages that are only asking, not asking about work, only asking about your personal life. I'm really, really good with people seeing their power and knowing that they are just as important as anybody else. But a
Yeah.
lot of owners are really good at that. But I would say maybe it's not my biggest flex, but my coolest flex
Your coolest
is
flex. I like it.
the way that I surprise people and do it in a really big way. And that's always so fun.
I love it. Oh my
Mhm.
God. Okay. So let's get a little more personal with who you are, Heather. You are a salon owner. You are the founder and creator of PIP University. You, like you said it on your IG bio, you said, I am the co-creator of Miss Rivers. I love that. And
Mhm.
you are a woman of faith who lays at the feet of Jesus. And let me
Yep.
just tell you, I'm hearing everything you're saying, and I know the references of where they're coming from. So I appreciate that, and I was pleasantly surprised with that. But I want you to share what was the what was the thing that you had to overcome to get where you are today?
Thinking I was dumb.
Oh, honey,
Like
what?
100%. Oh my gosh, yes. Yes, yes, easily hands down. I've talked about this on many stages before of, the when I was growing up,
Mhm.
specifically in high school, I didn't get good grades. In fact, there's going to be a post going out soon that talks about this
Okay,
where
perfect.
my senior year, my mom would always be like, baby, D equals diploma. We have got to graduate because my grades were just so terrible. And I had three best friends, and they all were going to nursing school. They all graduated with 4.0s. I graduated with like a 2.8. And I was like, I do not want to be a nurse. Like, I do not want to be a nurse. And then so we graduate, and I went to the University of Louisville. They went to the University of Kentucky. Go Cards, because I'm not a Kentucky fan. And I went to Louisville. I cheered my first year, never went to school, did not care about school. And then eventually you start getting older and it's like, okay, this isn't cool anymore. I got to figure out something. And I was 21 years old. And so truly, truly, I was like, I'm going to go to hair school because I don't think that there's anything else that I could be good at. And what's so weird about that kind of thinking, because that is the truth, that's
Mhm.
really how I thought. I did not have low self-esteem. I've never had low self-esteem, but
Oh,
I was very clear on I am not good at this. I'm not good at this traditional education academically. It ain't it for me. Maybe I could be good at hair. And that didn't make me feel a certain way. It's like things that make us feel a certain way are only because we give them meaning.
mhm.
We make everything in our lives mean a certain thing. So just because I wasn't good at school and I didn't think I could be really good at anything else, didn't really make me feel bad. Now it did maybe worry me a little bit because I was like, okay, I got to figure out something that I'm good at. And so I started school, and 3 months into school, I realized, okay, I'm pretty freaking smart, but I'm just smart in a different way.
Mm-hmm.
I know how to talk to people. I have a great personality. People really like me. I really like people. I think I could be really good at this. And then one thing just kind of led to the other, where I started getting really serious about money in my life, because I've never come from money before. My parents worked their asses off and provided me an incredible childhood, but it was a struggle for them, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I did not want to have that lifestyle for myself anymore. And I certainly didn't want to have that for my children. And so I got into like personal development big time, read the book, The Secret. People can think what they want about The Secret. It's all woo. It changed my entire life when I was 19 years old. Every single thing about my life completely changed. And to me, that is absolutely God. Think about the things that are worthy of praise. Like, think only on those things.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what I did. And from the time I was 19 up until, now, my life looks completely different from now than what it did midway through when I was 19. So I would say that was the biggest thing in my head, was getting past me thinking that I was dumb or wasn't smart enough. And then the second thing would probably be getting past any financial barriers to what I had always known in life, and knowing that there was more out there for me and for anyone that wants it and is willing to be uncomfortable enough to push past the beliefs that tell you whatever that you want isn't available to you. That was probably the second thing that I got to push past, knowing, realizing, and experiencing I can have all that I want. And it all starts with me and what's going on in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
big lesson.
Totally. You touched on so many good points, like the self-development piece. That's a huge thing that I talk about in the podcast with my clients, my coaching clients. If you don't know who you are as a person, if you don't match your head with your heart, you're going to have a really tough time. And owning a salon, any business, that's like the ultimate form of personal development. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, considering I feel like my salon has almost given me a heart attack 12 times in 10 years. I think owning a salon is the hardest business to own. Like, hands down, I think it is the hardest thing to do. I run a virtual education company and basically a marketing platform. And that's the only thing that I've done, but I still stand behind that. Owning a salon is so tough. And if you hang on long enough, you will experience personal development in its purest form.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is your secret to success?
Okay. I really don't do anything exciting. Like, I don't have new announcements. I'm not rolling something new out all the time. I literally started my salon in 2013. The term PIP, positively impacting people, I started that in 2011. I trademarked it in 2014. It didn't come to fruition until 2016 because I ran a marathon, because I didn't think I hit a wall and I needed a breakthrough. And I was like, I don't know what to do with PIP. My salon was doing really, really good, but I knew that with PIP, I needed some type of breakthrough. And I was like, I feel like I can do anything in the world. Like, there's nothing that I can't do. It's so funny because when I went to hair school in 2007, I was like, this is the only thing that I can do. Fast forward to 2016. Actually, this was 2015. I was like, the only thing I can't do is run a marathon. I can be president of the United States if I have the right people around me and if I want it bad enough. I don't want to be president of the United States.
I was like, girl, okay.
Not at all. But it's like, if I want something bad enough, and I have my people around me, the ones that like lift me up and are just, they'll tell me the truth. They'll also tell me not to quit. Like, they have my back. Then I really do believe that there's anything that I can do. Absolutely. Because God is running the show in my life.
That's right.
But then I was like, but I cannot run a marathon, 26.2 miles. Cause I'm not a runner. I hate running, all that stuff. So I was like, well, that means I have to run a marathon. And the only reason I did that was because I was looking for a breakthrough. So me and my other best friend, Sam, we flew to Boston to watch the Boston Marathon in 2016. And my race was the Saturday after in Nashville, which is the third hilliest course in America. And I did not know this at the time when I signed up for it. And we got as close to the finish line that you can get without being paparazzi or press. And so I wanted to see what they were going to be like coming across the finish line. And I'm like, man, this is a little bit scary. I mean, you see people like collapsing that they're literally at the finish line and they can't keep going because they're just so exhausted. So I'm like, oh my God, what did I sign up for? Well, a week later, I ran my marathon. It was fantastic. Hardest thing physically I've ever done in my life by far. But when I was in Boston, we toured Harvard's campus. And I have like this obsession with Harvard because I look at those people like they're so much smarter than me. Like, I could never go to Harvard. So we go to the bookstore. I buy like everything in the bookstore, and I come home. And I'm like a big morning ritual person, writing down all my stuff with my Harvard pen, my Harvard notebook. And basically PIP University was born from Harvard, and just the eliteness, the excellence, like everything that it stands for, the history. So that's how PIP University came to be. And then one thing just started leading to the other thing. And then here we are today with PIP University, but I have stuck with PIP since 2011. So I would say like my real secret, or the thing that has worked for me, is I do not jump from one thing to another. If I have an idea, and as an entrepreneur, like I have a lot of ideas, but my discipline is freaking crazy. I will not start something new. I will not offer another program if one isn't working. I mean, the only program that we've ever offered is Rich Life CEO. We have Rich Life Hairstylist, or we did have Rich Life Hairstylist, but we closed that out a few years ago when I was like, I only want to work with salon owners, because at that time, that's now who I identify with at the most. Like I'm not behind the chair anymore. So it was a little bit hard for me to, connect well, because that's just not who I am anymore. And I'm not in the day-to-day. So then we only offer Rich Life CEO, and I see so many people. I'm like, if you would just stop and stay with something for 10 years, 10 years, literally 10 years, definitely 1 year, but 10 years, and stick with it and not jump to the next best thing because you think it's going to get you there faster, you will be successful. And there's not a lot of people out there that do that. Not at all.
No.
It sounds like a boring answer, but it's true.
No, but it's the truth. And that's what it's all about. You got to be real and raw and honest with yourself, especially here on this podcast anyway.
Yeah.
So you're talking about everything that you're saying, and then you have G code, and you talk about face planting and basically failing. What has been your biggest failure, right? Quote unquote. And what did you learn from it? And it could be personal, it could be professional, whatever it is that you want.
My biggest failure. Gosh, honestly, I have failed at so many things, which is a good thing because it tells you where you're messing up, and it points you, that feedback is so critical because it tells you the direction that you want to go. Honestly, what just went down in my life. Okay. I mean, what just happened in my company with me losing. So basically I lost half of my leadership team and half of my team. Like we were a smaller team anyways, but I lost 4 people. Let me see. 5 people. And I would say that it got to that point because I was so far removed, and I was letting people run the company that had no business running the company if they weren't being led by me.
Mm.
And these are good people. These are good
Sure.
people. No matter what's happened, you know, I trusted them with so much. And there's really nothing that anybody did to break, quote unquote, break my trust, but they weren't being led and they weren't being pushed by me. Now, there is an element where I was paying people that were equipped and qualified,
Mm.
and they could definitely do the job. But circumstances get in the way. Life gets in the way, just like it did for me when I was pregnant. So,
Yeah.
so 5 of us got pregnant all at the same time. We had 5 babies in a year, less than a year. We had 5 babies in 7 months.
Oh man, that stuff is contagious.
And I mean, it literally, that is what sparked just things not being
Everything.
followed through on.
Sure.
Too much of someone's task getting put on someone else that wasn't pregnant, that was also in leadership, and she was bearing the brunt of all of our responsibilities. And so I would say, like, hands down, that whole experience that happened, and oh my gosh, honestly, no matter how bad it was when I was going through it in October, like, that's when I texted you, and I was like, I cannot do a podcast right now. You will lose subscriptions if you do a podcast with me right now. But I'm so freaking thankful for it, because that needed to happen in my business. I needed to step back in that seat. I needed to get a handle and see every single thing that either wasn't being done or wasn't being done up to the standard that, not even my standard, but a little bit my standard, but really the standard that we all created. It just wasn't being done anymore. I needed to see that where the gaps were. I needed to look at all of our systems, see how they could be made better, me do them for a while, see about their efficiency and why we were doing some of the systems that we were doing, and then start to delegate it again, but still be in a spot where whatever I delegate to somebody, they still follow up with me about that thing. So then I can hold them accountable. I get to sit back in that seat again, because I noticed that our team was just, there was a lot in the company that was just soft as hell. Just, it wasn't good. It was just soft. It was, I don't want to say lazy. It just wasn't operating. If we were the best salon in America, which I think every salon and every salon owner should assume the position, how would we show up and act if we were the best salon in America? If we were America's favorite salon, how would you show up and act? And everybody should do this. And we were not showing up and acting like that. And so I need to ensure that we were going to start to do that. And I was not doing that. And that was absolutely my greatest failure, and cost me a lot. It cost me a lot of money. It cost me a lot of emotion. And the good thing about that, though, is the comeback from that is going to be really, really big, because I have no other choice than for it to be big. For me, it's like, I can't sit in the position that I sit in within our industry in leading the program that we lead for other salon owners. And this is all an ego thing, because my husband's like, you don't have to do a damn thing. You don't have to do nothing. And I'm like, no, I do. I owe it to myself and all the people that I teach and coach in PIP University, where I get to turn this thing around. Because sometimes I get in my head a little bit that I don't have the luxury of driving to my salon and being in the walls of it. I'm literally rebuilding this sucker from 1,000 miles away. It's different with PIP University. I have 8 professors. None of us live in the same state. We're all remote. But with my salon, they all work together every day, and I'm the only one that isn't there. So I miss so much context. So there are some things in there that are really, really challenging for me to figure out. And how do I keep this closeness with the team? Also knowing that I have another company that I really, really love. So it's about figuring out, what do those time boundaries look like? Because there's only so much I'm willing to give my salon. My family comes first. My child comes first. And I've never said that in my adult life until last year, ever. Work has really always come first. That's not the case anymore. I love PIP University just as much as I love my salon. So it's like the time that I'm going to give my salon is in a very specific window, and I will not give it more time than that. I won't. It doesn't mean enough to me, and it means a lot to me, but I have these other things that are priorities. Plus, I'm not in the same vicinity as my salon. Well, rather than having a loser ass mentality, that's what we call it, an LAM, and one of our PIP University core values, I get to think beyond the circumstance. I get to expect supernatural shit to happen in my company, and for me to be given the wisdom and the knowledge and be plugged in with people that are smarter than me so I can figure this out. Because I do know that I can do all things
Right.
with the right people around me if I want it bad enough and with the Lord leading me. And so it's just me figuring that stuff out.
I love it. Do you ever feel like you're missing out because you're not there, like in your salon?
No.
Okay. Okay. I asked that because when I go to the salon every day and I'm there, and there are some days where, I can't go because I got to do something else. And I kind of miss it. And I'm like, oh, I wonder how everybody's
So
doing
I
today.
felt that way. I felt that way at first. In fact, there was a really big shift where when my two main leaders, I started really investing in their education, and they started really investing in their education, and they got really good. They got to become really, really good leaders. This is before any of us got pregnant.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a full year, and that was a rough year for me because I was learning this new role that I was in. I didn't know how to show up. I didn't really know what I was supposed to be doing because the salon could fully run without me. But there's this guy, Brian Nunes. He owns Blow in North Carolina, extremely successful salon, an extremely successful salon owner. And he told me, when you are at the point where your salon does not need you anymore, you are the most powerful that you've ever been in business.
Ooh.
And he said, and when you're the most powerful, you're going to be the most insecure. And that whole year, I felt that. I felt so insecure. I had to fight. I had to do my own self-coaching. Because when we were investing in them, I was also investing in my own education, all with mindset and leadership. And so there were so many times where they had like a lot of inside, not necessarily jokes, but a lot of inside stuff that they would say from the education that they were taking. And I wasn't taking their education until the end of the year. So they took theirs in January. I waited until October. And there was a lot of things in language that they would use that I didn't know. And so it was just, I felt insecure and I felt like I was missing out. But I do not feel that way anymore because I love PIP University so much. I enjoy PIP University, and PIP University is extremely successful. And I have my family, and I have so many other projects and passions in my life where my identity is not found in work. So when things are happening in my salon and there are some times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could have been there to experience that with her, to give her a hug. But other than that, I never miss it. I never wish I was there more than how much I love where I'm at, like ever. And that's how you know I've done the growth, because there's nothing like moving out of state 1,000 miles away. You'll be forced, and because that's been 5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I did feel like that at once, but now that isn't even a thought ever. That was a really, really good question. And I probably would not have realized the mental growth that I've gone through if you didn't bring that up, because it was tough for me at first.
Yeah. I almost
question.
didn't ask it because I was like, but I had to. I just had to know. All right. So what's an insult that you have gotten that you are now super proud of?
An insult?
An insult.
Like, give me an example.
Like, it could be about your work. Okay, you were saying before that you just felt dumb, right? Have you ever like a client being like, oh my God, you're so dumb. And then now today you're like, I am so dumb, but I am so smart. what's an insult that you're just so proud of that you have just turned it and just been like, I'm rocking it?
So I don't know if this is, I don't think that this was an insult. I really don't think that this was
Okay.
an insult. But when I first started speaking on stages, I wanted to speak on this one stage, and I'm not gonna mention,
That's
whose
fine.
stage it was.
That's
But
fine.
I wanted to speak on this stage, and the person that holds this event, I had to go through them. And I was like, I would love the opportunity. I I don't want to break out. I want main stage. And I want to close out main stage. That is a very big ask for someone that had not been speaking for very long. I had been speaking for 3 years. And their response was, whew, they were like, and they were very professional. They were professional, but I had to prove myself. I mean, there's probably in this email exchange from 2018, there's probably 47 emails back and forth of me proving why I should have the right to speak on this person's stage. Like, do you understand? Like, this was a sentence that was said. Do you understand the audience that comes to my events? Do you understand the kind of people that are in these events? This is the big show. Like, this is the real deal. And I've been to other conferences. This is the person talking. I've been to other conferences where I have watched people basically fall flat on their face on stage and freak out. And honestly, they were right, because I've been to several conferences where I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel so bad for this person. This is not going good. This is not going good. And he's like, the last thing that I want on my stage is for that to happen, because people pay a lot of money for my events, and the people that I'm going to have speak on my stage, they need to be ready. They need to be. And honestly, I totally respected that. Like, who the hell was I? What video could I send? What testimonials did I really have? I mean, I had some, but like, I would have to email the people. Like, I didn't have everything ready. And so then they went back and forth with me on like what I would name my keynote. I mean, just so many little bitty things. And I did it for free. Like, I was not asking to be paid for this. And I worked my ass off on this thing. I mean, I developed an entirely new keynote. I've never taught this. One time I taught the same keynote twice, but every other time that I've spoken on a stage, I've always developed a brand new keynote. And this takes me 4 months minimum to develop something like this. And I practiced. I knew every single word. I mean, and I nailed that sucker. I mean, I got up on that stage and owned it. And when I was finished and I closed it out, I got a standing ovation from the entire room. And nobody stood throughout the rest of the thing. And when I came down and got off stage, this person walked up to me and they were like, "Where in the hell did you come from?" And I was like, I'm really, really glad that went well, because I worked really, really hard to deliver that. And that was probably the biggest. I don't think it was an insult, but they made it very, very, very hard for me. And for me to deliver in such an awesome way, because I worked really hard to deliver it in that way. Oh man, I was so freaking proud of myself. And I was so proud of myself for thinking that I had a seat at that table and not just bowing out after the 30-second email when I was still having to prove. Because there was a part of myself that made like, screw this. I know I'm good enough. But it's like, well, if you're good enough, then follow through with it and prove that you're good enough. And I did. And they've had me back many times to speak on their stages. So that was a pretty cool moment.
I love that story. That is persistence and consistency is like your thing. And I'm so proud to know you. Like, like, that's awesome.
Thank you.
That is so inspiring. Just that alone. Like, it's almost like your insult, right, was like, how dare you not think that I can do it? Like, that seems to be the insult, and you're just knocking it out of the park.
Yeah. And then not letting it get to my head with
Yeah.
ego and being like, no, people that I'm going to work with are going to respect me. And he wasn't being disrespectful. He was
No.
being responsible with the stage and the people that, because I'll tell you this, it sucks to go to an event and spend $600 on a 1 or 2 day event and half the speakers are shitty. Because when
Ugh.
I'm at these events, I'm like, where do they find these people? There's no value here. People are stuttering all over the place. Because for me, when I'm writing up any of my keynotes or any of my presentations, I don't really like to call them keynotes. I like to call them performances because they literally are not a keynote. There is a lot of other stuff that goes in the mix. But I'm thinking about the cost of the ticket. I'm thinking about how much these people spent on their hotels and how much they spent on their flights.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is that if I was the only person to speak and they only heard me, my hour keynote or my 2 hour keynote, whatever it is, would they say that their investment was worth it if they only heard me speak? Would they feel like they got a return? And that's why it takes me so long. And so for that, in the moment, I was annoyed, but looking back, I really appreciate that about that person. And I think what's coolest to me is that I didn't let my ego get out of hand and say, screw that, I'm not going to do it because of the way that they're talking to me. Right. And I persevered through it and just stuck with it and then proved it.
So what common myth do you face many times that about what you do?
Man. I want to say, and maybe it's lack of awareness. I want to say that I don't really know anymore. I'll be able to give you an answer. There was a time when I only identified with being a hairstylist and I only identified with being a salon owner. And even when my salon was very successful, but I hadn't experienced, I don't even want to say I hadn't experienced the success that I have now. I'll say I didn't have the experience that I do now.
Mm-hmm.
So when I only identified with it as a hairstylist and only as a salon owner before I had PIP in the mix, I would say the common misconception was, and who knows, some of this could just be in my head.
Yeah.
And maybe some of it wasn't, but I would say the common misconception was I was subpar or what I did was subpar to a nurse or a teacher or an attorney or a doctor or whatever. Has anybody ever said that to me before? No. There were definitely people in hair school and when I was a new stylist behind the chair that had all kinds of opinions about my career and what I should do and what I didn't do. And didn't you ever want to go to college? Oh, so your 3 best friends went to college. How did your parents feel about that? A lot of insinuations.
Yeah.
But as I've gotten older and I've had more experience, I don't know if there's a common misconception now. Maybe it's, if I'm thinking, in a different way, it's that must be nice. Must be nice to live the life that you live. Must be nice to have all the freedom that you want and you look like you're doing pretty well. And I do pretty well, but I'm nowhere near where I want to be. So let's make that all clear. But it must be nice. And it's like, yes, it is very nice. It's very nice. But I have worked so hard on the right things. I have all the freedom in the world that I want, and I use none of it. I use none of it. I don't see my baby from 9 a.m. until 6:30 p.m. at night, Monday through Friday. And I'm disciplined in that. I never get emotional because my mom watches her, but my mom takes her to her house and it's like clockwork. She picks her up at the same time in the morning, brings her home at 6:30 on the dot, Monday through Friday. I'm disciplined in when I sit down to work. I'm disciplined when I schedule all my other appointments that I have for life. And I really don't do things that most people think comes with freedom. So I would say that would be maybe a misconception is must be nice. And My first answer is it sure in the hell is. It's real nice.
Absolutely. You put in the work, you're going to enjoy it. Period.
Yep. And I still day to day put in the work.
Yeah.
But now I've realized, like, of course I have goals and dreams and I want to keep going after them. But honestly, if I won the lottery today, one of my really good friends, Jen Baudier, she's in out of Louisiana, her husband, extremely successful guy. And also like really fun to talk to. And I was at their beach house last year, 2 years ago. And he was like, if you won the lottery, what would you do? I'm like, other than maybe like investing in some real estate,
Yeah.
I would literally be doing the same exact thing that I'm doing right now because I enjoy the journey.
Exactly.
I love sitting at my desk every day. I love working really, really hard. I love solving problems throughout the day. I love producing work that I'm proud of. So if I won $100 million tomorrow, not much about my day-to-day life would change because this is where I find the most fulfillment. Like I don't want to just be like going off and traveling all the time. And I can do that, but I do not want to do that. I like to work. So I'd be doing the same daggone thing because it's what fills my cup.
So I love that. I love that. And I have said that. My mother has also said that. I think it's just that hardworking woman kind of mentality, and we just love what we do and we just do it and we don't even think about it. I'm sure you wake up and you at 9 o'clock, you start work. And then before you know it, you look at your clock and your baby's home and you're like, what just happened? So that's just how it is. We're wrapping up, but what's one lesson, okay, that you have learned working in the beauty industry as a stylist, as an owner, as a speaker, whatever, that you wish that everybody who's not in the beauty industry would learn?
Man, that's a hard question.
I feel like maybe I've been asking you a lot of hard questions and I don't mean to. I'm just trying to pick your brain, okay?
I thought that you were going to say, what's one thing that you've experienced in the beauty industry that you want the beauty industry to know? If it's other people, I mean, maybe, I don't know if it would go both ways, but like when I was originally hearing you answer that question, I was like, oh man, this is it. That the power of a hairstylist, and maybe it does go both ways, because if it's for the general population, then it's like, you need to go find you a good hairstylist because this is what they do in your life.
Right.
But for me, it's like, and I still feel this way. And sometimes I get a little burnt out with this industry because there's a lot of poverty mindsets in this industry by the people that work in the industry. And so sometimes that gets a little bit hard for me because it's not true. It's all limiting beliefs and it's just patterns that are forming themselves or have already been formed. And we continually duplicate the pattern because we're not willing to take the risks with our mind and try on another way of believing. Sometimes that can, to be honest with you, sometimes it really, really annoys me. And it's like, I don't like this. But then, I wake up the next day and I'm like obsessed all over again. And this is why that annoys me, is because if people really understood how absolutely powerful being in this industry is, being a service provider behind the chair, even a salon owner, because most of the salon owners I know are still working behind the chair or doing a certain type of service, the power that is in that. Like the other day I was thinking when I was getting ready for work, I wonder how much money I would make if I was behind the chair right now. And if I was like just wanting to mess around and didn't really have any goals, I would almost want to go back behind the chair to see what damage I could do with how much I have learned about. I started charging in my career right before I retired, and I was charging good money. But like, if I went back now, how much I would charge to sit in my chair would be outrageous, because I would only focus on, if you sit in my chair for 5 hours, I'm going to make your entire month better. You're going to feel like you don't even recognize yourself physically and mentally when you leave my chair. It would be a completely different experience, because that is the power that a hairstylist has over a person. 100%. And there's not another industry that can touch that.
Yeah.
We are also like, I don't make time for nobody else. Like when I was pregnant, I went to the chiropractor every 4 weeks because my back was killing me. I haven't went to the chiropractor since I had my baby. It takes an act of God for me to schedule a massage, and I pay monthly. I pay monthly for my massages, and I haven't had a massage in 6 months, and I'm still paying because I just don't
Donating
make
more like
time.
it.
I don't make time for those things. The
Yeah.
people that sit in our chair, they have to make time
Yeah.
for us. They have to have one-on-one conversations with us, and we get to physically touch them. There is no other time in your life. And because hair is a necessity, the people that come to see us, like men have to have their hair cut, and women have to have their hair cut or colored. It's like, compared to any other industry out there, there is not one that exists like ours. And so just what you can do in a person's life, it astonishes me. It amazes me. And I think if our industry, hairstylists, yes, but especially salon owners, if they really understood the power that we hold in our hands, and they acted on that power with business strategy, it would eliminate all the poverty mindset that our industry goes through and continually goes through. It just doesn't even make sense to me, because I think that this is like the greatest industry ever, with who we are to the public and who we are to our communities. And continually, and this is because of lack of education.
Yep.
A lot of people in our industry think that we just do hair. It's like, oh my gosh, that's like the last thing that we do. It's the last thing that we do. And until we take that seriously and we realize the power we are in other people's lives, like for me, that's why it will cost a lot of money to sit in my chair, because of the education that I had to go through, the amount of money that I've had to spend to learn that, and to learn who I can be in another person's life while I'm making them beautiful. That's going to cost money. And I don't feel bad about that at all. And honestly, people would want me to charge that kind of money, so I would actually be behind a chair. There's so many people that when I go home, if I run into old guests of mine, they'll come up to me and be like, I've never found anyone since you. I've never found anybody, and I would pay unlimited amount of money if you still worked behind the chair.
That's so
So
good.
when it
That
comes
feels
to
so good.
charging people, I just don't feel bad, because I know the value that I bring, and I know people want to pay it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Loaded answer.
Oh, no, it was perfect. It's perfect. It's perfect. Last question. What is one question you wished I would have asked, and how would you have answered?
What a good question. Okay, this is going to be different.
Okay.
How has your husband impacted your career?
Oh my God. That was one of my questions. And I was like, other stuff is so good, but yes, go. What's your answer?
So I would say he has definitely taught me about, he taught me a lot about money. He taught me a lot about, I have watched him negotiate his salary 2 times now. He just got promoted to he works at a tax firm, and he just got promoted to partner, which is, if you know anything about the corporate world, that is like, it's the last thing that somebody does in in the corporate world. And before this, several years ago, I watched him negotiate, that salary. I mean, I'm a little girl from Kentucky. Okay. Average income per household where I'm from is $55,000. And I remember listening to him, and my jaw just being on the floor, being like, are you prepared to walk away? If they say no, Are you prepared to walk away? And him just being like, yeah, oh yeah, I'll walk away. I'll walk away. And he wouldn't let it, I mean, to the last thing of all of this, where I was like, this is good enough. This is good enough. And he wouldn't, no, we needed to be here or we weren't moving forward. And I just watched him stand his ground and really stand in like what he believed in and why he believed in it. And he's an extremely, extremely hard worker. And watching both of these experiences work out the way that he wanted them to, I mean, it literally, especially the first time, because that was years ago, it opened my world up to the possibility of thinking bigger. Milady, who writes our textbooks.
Right.
Okay. This is who I studied from when I went to school.
Right.
They randomly reached out to me during COVID and they were like, we want you to create a course for us. I was like, okay, well, anything that I do in that kind of realm, it takes me forever. It takes me so long because I bring out the bells and whistles. It is comprehensive. It is thorough. It is robust. I do not leave out one thought that somebody could be thinking, and it takes me a long time. And so they came up with a certain number for me. Well, I'll just say it's $5,000. They're like, we get $5,000.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, like I cannot do this. This is going to take me, it's going to take me like a solid 3 months. I'm not doing this for $5,000. And my husband was like, okay, well, what's the lowest that you would take? Like, where would you be at? And I was like, for me to just like say yes to it, I would at least want 15 grand. I was like, all right, write me an email and tell them that. Write him an email and tell them minimum 15 grand. And so I'm like, I write it, draft it up. I send him like any email like that. I send it to him first to see how he would proofread it. And he does the same thing with me. I'll proofread a lot of his emails. And so then he told me what he would change. And literally I like was not going to send it because I was so scared. I'm like, this is a very big difference.
Yeah.
But I just hit send because he was going to be like, did you send it? I hit send. And then within 3 days, they wrote back and they said, we're going to be able to meet you at this number. And I was like, what? Just because I asked, like, just because I believed that I thought that I could ask, because he was like, what's the minimum that you would do it for? And you would go all in and build a great product for them. And I said 15 grand. And he said, then tell them that. And so he's opened my world up to things that I don't think I just wouldn't be aware of if it wasn't for him. And to watch what he's done in his career is such a cool thing. And for him not to be threatened by mine is also something that's really, really cool. And I just love it that I have somebody that's hungry for their career like I am for mine. And is also, when it comes to like our baby, he changes just as many diapers as I do. When she was waking up in the middle of the night, I took the first shift, he took the second shift. Like he treats me like I'm an equal in this household because I am. But there's a lot of women that are an equal in the household financially is what I'm referring to here, but they're not treated that way. And it's nice to feel treated that way, but also it's a requirement to be with me. And he just exceeds at it really, really well.
I love that. I love that. But especially because like you were saying before, the poverty mindset that's so prevalent in our industry. And that also applies to our relationships of all kinds, friendships, boyfriends.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, the horror story.
What can keep them, it's what can break those chains.
Yeah.
Or it's what can keep them from, what is the in perpetuity? Does that mean that I don't even know what that means, but it sounds right.
It sounds right. You're saying it, and I'm like, yes. We're gonna
keeps it going, you know?
Yep.
It keeps it going or it stops it.
Oh my God. Thank you, Heather, for
thank you.
Cat. I feel like I stumped you maybe a couple times, but
you did.
All in good, real and raw fun.
This was fun.
So I'm gonna for the listeners there, please feel free to reach out to Miss Heather on her personal Instagram, right?
Yep, either or. Yep, personal I'll probably answer because many people run the PIP account.
Okay, so there you go. So reach out to her, follow her, check out her adorable baby. And until next time, my dear, dear listener,